Ses. Meltem Hanım yavaş yavaş başlayalım mı? Meltem Hanım yavaş yavaş başlayalım isterseniz. Olur mu? Evet, artık konferansımızın son oturumundayız ve
Well, this is the last session, and the title is Increasing Onshore Wind Installed Capacity Best Practices, Challenges, and Innovations in Project Development. The objective is to explore the complete journey of Turkish onshore wind projects development, permitting, financing, and commissioning. The session will cover both technical and commercial aspects, discussing emerging trends, presenting some comparisons and best practices to underline the sustainability of onshore wind projects. Now I invite moderator Güral Erol, the General Manager of Artı Bir Energy.
Enerji ve Tabii Kaynaklar Bakanlığı'na YEKA Dairesi Başkanı Sayın Doktor Dilan Kavruk önceki oturumda da
Dr. Dilan Kavruk, the head of YEKA from the Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. Sancak Energy General Manager Mecit Sancak. Director of Development Investment Bank of Turkey, Erdem Sezer. Renaissance Energy Project Delivery and Procurement Director Ahmet Hatipoğlu. And finally, co-founder of Enermix, Özkan Ulu. I kindly invite you to your seats and leave the floor to the General Manager of Artı Bir Energy, Güray Erol. You have an hour and a half, but if you could wrap it in like an hour and 20 minutes, then you'll get to have 10 more minutes for Q&A session. Welcome, dear guests. This is the last session of the 13th Turek 2024. Thank you so much for your participants. And I want to thank Turek Committee for their kind invitation. Now let's go back to the history first and understand how we installed our capacity. Let's remember some figures and share some statistics. And then let's focus on our future projects for onshore. I mean, these are some of the topics that we will cover during the session. We know that so many teams worked around the clock to make this yet another successful Congress. I remember last year's Congress. I think the participation was even higher than last year. And I know that with each passing year, the Congress will flourish and grab even more interest with each passing year. I have prepared some questions, and the fact that they have different backgrounds is a great opportunity for all of us. And it is going to be quite an opportunity for all of us to benefit from your experience and your know-how. 13 gigawatts of installed capacity is the current picture of Turkey. We have ambitious goals for offshore and onshore. We want to increase our capacity to 120,000 megawatts. And there are some great new projects along the way. And I actually want to get some general overview. Dr. Dilan Kavruk, let's start with you. I'm going to ask you to offer us an analysis as the Directorate General of Energy Affairs, Head of Renewable Energy Resource Area. Thank you and welcome, dear guests. Actually, we discussed it in the previous session as well. Last week, Minister announced 120,000 megawatts of wind and solar is a great opportunity. And as the ministry, the most important support that we receive comes from investors. Since the past, renewable energy has come a long way, and it's a beautiful story, especially for Turkey. And in the last 15 years, we started from zero and reached to a significant point, both in terms of equipment manufacturing and the turbines itself. And together with all the realized investment, the total installed capacity has reached 30 gigawatts, and until 2035, the goal is 120. The goal is to quadruple the current capacity, and YEKA has become an important parameter of this equation. It started in 2017. YEKA investment started in 2017. We prepared the regulation as the ministry and announced it. Then we had our first competition for YEKA in 2017, and we allocated 1,000 megawatts, and we kickstarted the equipment manufacturing as well, and we made it a prerequisite. Equipment production, R&D center, meaning we wanted to have integrated facilities. Then came our 1,000 megawatts of installed capacity in Karagüç. In 2017 and in 2018, we had a RES project. Then we ended up having 2,885 megawatts of a contract. And for the first contest, for the first investment and 1,000 megawatts of installment, we faced some issues. The pandemic, the economic developments and everything. Then we had to cancel a project. But after that, projects continued to be implemented. Of course, investors faced some challenges on permit side, and as the ministry, we followed everything, monitored all the developments in coordination with related departments and bodies. But on the other side, when it comes to equipment manufacturing, we offered a great threshold actually. As you know, in wind RES 2, RES 3 contests, there was an expectation of domestic product use by up to 55% in blades, in towers, in generators. We asked for domestic product, domestically produced items to be used, and that was another success. And when it comes to permits, if we can resolve the issue up to a certain point, then we believe it will have a very accelerating effect on the future wind projects. The chair, Mr. Ibrahim, also stated an annual 5 gigawatts of installation is quite possible, and it makes us more than happy. Let me talk specifically about YEKA. YEKA 7 wind and solar contests were announced last week, and I actually had a presentation. I have a couple of slides. We announced 1,200 megawatts of RES and 800 megawatts of gas. We announced everything last week on the 28th of October, and as of 4th of November, we just announced the contest for solar. We have 6 contests for solar and 5 contests for wind.
Tabii bu yarışmalar yapılırken tabii belli şartnamedeki belli koşulları
Of course, requirements were quite specific, but I'm sure investors covered it. They know about it. But it's not like, okay, these are the requirements, let's fulfill it.
bu şekilde kabul ederek değil,
They don't always accept it. Sometimes there are rejections. Sometimes, I mean, there could be rejections, there could be some feedback. I mean, so far we received positive feedback about the requirements, and there are a lot of new things. Our investors are following it all very closely. But in the new one, we projected a possibility of not paying the transmission fee. For example, in the previous context, we had a 70 months maturity of free sale. We expect a price quote starting from 5.5 cents. It can go as low as 3.50 cents. If we can see 3.50 cents, then maybe we can increase the share of contribution. It can start from a minimum of $10,000 per megawatt, and the highest is where it will be concluded. We again expect the share of domestically used products to be high. Again, the minimum is 55, and there are already companies fulfilling these requirements. We have 2 turbine manufacturing companies that we are all familiar with, and we have pre-approved. I mean, we had approved them before. But we have full faith that both the number and the quality and diversification of products will increase. Transmission fees will have a maturity of 20 years. And that there will be an exemption, like not fully, but it will be, I mean, not like exempted, but it'll be reimbursed. So it is a positive motivation in terms of the requirement. The date is January. That's when companies can start applying, and then we will have the contest. Like I said, if you have any contributions, criticisms, or additional, demands or expectations, please do contact us. We are on the same page here as the ministry, but until that day, please let us know. And for gas, it's similar. The maturity is 60 months. The lowest price will be different, slightly different, 3.25 cents. And we expect the use of domestically produced items to have a share of 75%. Well, at this point, what I want to say is, well, when it comes to scale, maybe YEKA is not representing something that big, but like the minister announced, together with annual contest volume of 2,000 megawatts, and with the prerequisite of the domestically produced product, I think there is quite a motivation and interest, and we believe that this interest will continue, and an annual 2,000 megawatts of YEKA will also continue. So I think we'll continue to see good development here. Okay, thank you. We just followed the Ministry of Energy, Renewable Energy Resources area. It's a department that is really facilitating and enabling. But now let's move on with the field. Sancak Energy is one of the very first investors. We are joined by Mecit Sancak, the general manager. Each project has its own dynamics, and each project has its, pros and cons, or like good times and bad times, let's say. But investors are creating permanent experience. They generate lessons learned. They always strive to find better ways to implement projects. Sometimes it means cheaper, sometimes it means more, beneficial. And each company has their own, goals. You've been investing for some time. You went for hybrids and you invested in other areas. So I believe the accumulation of experience is quite something in your company. But now, thinking of your previous projects, what would you say? Thank you. It's a great crowd. Welcome. I'm here to represent Sancak Energy, and for the last 13 years, I've been the general manager. And just like Mr. Gürel said, I have an engineering background, so I think it's been quite successful for us, and we totaled to 320 megawatts of wind and solar. We have fields in Silivri, in Urla, and largest field is in Konya, Ardıçlı Bağlar. We included hybrid projects this year. So yeah, we have an experience of 13 years, and we are more than willing to share our experience. I mean, as Sancak family, we have different investments too. I mean, looking from outside, you might conclude that, okay, it's an easy industry. Oh, yeah, you just erect a tower and the turbine starts, turning and you make money. No, it's never that easy. I mean, in the early days, we were lacking experience, so we had to pay incredible fines, and those fines actually taught us a lot of things. But in order to engage and implement a project from the very beginning to the end, you have to be careful of a lot of things, and let me share a couple of them with you, because we might have some new investors, and that would be great for them. Well, to begin with, make sure that you'll have access to access, so that's crucial. And as you know, looking at the global developments, you can't find money that easy, especially in Turkey. The economy is challenged, so those with the money, keep it in the interest. So, nobody is willing to invest, and those who don't have it, they can't have access. And when they do, it's really costly. And the worst challenge right now is that access to finance. Permits and the process. We're talking about super permits and everything, and the ministry is coming up with great announcements. But after 13 years of experience, I can tell you that from start to finish, permits alone take 1.5 to 2 years. And I think you need permits from maybe 10 or 20 institutions. And when someone says no, your entire project is trash, your efforts go in vain, and all that you have done so far is for nothing. So this really kills the appetite. But if we can simplify and ease that process, then it would curb the appetite. We don't have manufacturing companies here, but let me tell you something. We only have 4 or 5 companies, and China hasn't arrived in the country yet. And those who are operational are just arrogant, let's say. You see such a contract that it has 1,000 pages, and signing it takes 8 to 10 months, and they never back from anything. Operational costs were not this disturbing in the past. System utilization fees skyrocketed, and turbine companies really had their price hikes, so they started to become an additional burden. I remember our projects from 7 to 8 years ago. They used to be, expenses used to be like 13 to 14% of our turnover, but now it's hovering around 20 to 25%. And in the coming years, there's a potential for further price hike because looking at the turbine companies and their level of competition, the fact that there is no competition, the fact that there is no Chinese presence, really challenges investors in terms of expenses. Apart from that, all of our projects date back to 2011. One will start selling on the free market. And about batteries, let me talk about it. YECA had its announcement. They announced gas and BES. And I contacted my friends from the financing departments. I said, let's work on it. Let's pick two YECA projects. One was in Inner Anatolia, and one was in Thrace region, I guess. We had our works, we had our calculations, but the ROI would take 13 to 14 years if you see no surprises for all those years. That much time for any investor is not that appealing because having access to finance is hard and cash is gold. And when you invest only to get it back in 13 to 14 years is not that acceptable for investors at the moment. So YECAs doesn't look much appealing at the moment. Battery, remember, opened overnight. It was like 30,000 megawatts. We never applied. And I think we are among the 2 or 3 companies that didn't apply because it didn't appear that feasible either. Of course, with current conditions, maybe in the coming years, maybe in 3 to 4 years, they might become feasible. But I told Mr. Güral the same thing. I said, I'm going to be frank with everything. Looking at the industry of wind, the past was like a diamond shining bright. But I think in the coming 2 to 3 years, I think the investors will go for their extensions or their hybrid projects. That's how it's going to be. Tenders are usually joined by just a couple of companies. So I don't think there will be some heavy investments in the coming years because with such costs, with such ROI, it doesn't look that feasible. So this is my criticism to the industry, and this is where I'll leave now, and then I'll continue.
I just signed contract more than 31 investors. We have more than 155 agreements. It's not 3 to 5 companies. I do not really refer to those companies. Of course, everyone is a great big company. Everyone has these facilities. Of course, it's not just limited to 3 to 5 companies. We have huge investors. We have big investors. YECA, it was a mistake. YECA has different expectations. YECA has different expectations, and it has to function according to public benefit. It has to proportion cost, a good price, adequate pricing, and it has to just give enough volumes, and they have to facilitate the storage areas for a lot of investors. Turkey offers great examples. It's a great example in order to catch these targets. It's great that we have these different capacities and different ways. Yes, it's like criticizing YECA, but I criticize as an investor. For the future of the country, it's a correct project for as a method to look for these energies. For the end user, if it's a cheap electricity, it will be cheap usage, cheap consumption, as important project. For each and every sector, for today, for us, we have to be different from what we have done yesterday. You have to change a little bit. You have to consider the context. You have to adapt to the changes. So I believe you have to. take these into consideration. Thank you so much. When you started it, you said these access to financing. So as Erdem mentioned, Erdem is from this investment banking, from this institution. Access to financing, access to funds is complicated than usual, and it costs more. But as far as we know, Erdem, if you can confirm, these investment institutions, may it be domestic, may it be these foreign investors, we're comparing these other for investors. What's your take on the issue? What's your analysis? Mr. Guray, first of all, I'd like to thank you. I would like to thank the executive board. I'd like to thank TWEA for their kind invitation. It's an honor to participate this session. But Mr. Mejit sincerely mentioned a lot of topics. There are a lot of topics in terms of finance. We see that there are some criteria. It may vary from project to project. It depends on the projects, it depends on the location. But let me tell you this. In terms of finance, we have to talk about the feasibility studies. But of course, we can make these assessments. We have to let me communicate this. These wind projects started with Yekdam. If this Yekdam, this is an this is an advancement, this is an improvement for all of us. If they sell it on a basis, it's a guarantee, and it was very easy for them. Depending on the interest rates, you know the interest rates in our country. Even if you see that even the costs are soaring up high for the financiers, it is a difficult situation for all of us. For YK, there are some investments. They can continue with some investments. We will see what we can continue as bank, as a sales point. We have to do some investments. But well, we will be. We can talk about this a huge success. For part of these projects, we have these 28 gigawatts. Well, it is about this wind. When we talk about this storage, apart from the offshore, we can say that it is $30 to $35 billion. This is the topic that we are mentioning. If we grant these credits to 80%, 80% is a great number. So just evaluating this, implementing this, putting this into action, you need these resources. Within a decade, you need to on an average, you need to have this investment to 2.5. It's not about the wind. The solar power is also really important. You need this financing. You need $55 million. You need this $5.5 billion of investment for solar and wind power investments. You have to say this. There are a lot of investment institutions. You need to find these resources. Is this an important figure? The path is long, the path is really long, and we have to evaluate these areas. You have to consider the circumstances. So it is more or less the ratios will be stable, especially developing these projects. when you have a project, you will see, as you will appreciate, you have to complete this. The financer, the last thing the financer will ask is this: without any interruption, you will have to continue with the production without any losses is really important. In the financement, in the project, with the permissions, with the other technical specifications regarding some conditions, you will see these manufacturing parts. So this will make these projects even longer. For part of the financing, for part of the investment, we have to take this issue from both sides. We always communicate in some projects with these development banks, with these development institutions. It's even different. With these development institutions, we use these resources, these French development agencies. We derive it from these development agencies, development bank. The development banks that's based in Europe, the resources that we use, if we allocate them here, there's an important topic. The investments do not like this topic. I can understand. It's understandable with this impact, environmental impact, even though we discuss this investment, interest rate, but this social and environmental impact is a huge impact, especially regarding this credit, like regarding this credit when they allocate these resources, they want us to comply with this criteria. It's a renewable energy project. So we have to also see the areas. We have to analyze each and every topic. We have to report these. If it's an investment development institution, you have to add it to the checklist. As a bank, you have to allocate some resources. You can see that in the pipeline there are a lot of projects, but there are some. Maybe in the new vehicle projects, you will see the prices, tender prices. You'll see that regarding related company, if they have these flow in their currency, if it's an SPV, we have to analyze each and every one of them. The most important part is the feasibility part of the project. So you have to do the pricing correctly, and you have to contribute to this cash flow. Let me conclude my words. Well, Ahmet Hatipoğlu has made a lot of warnings. They also made these consultations, the Total Renaissance consultancy. So, your experiences in different areas. You have a lot of cases. I believe that you have rich cases here to share with us, comparing in the projects that is implemented. Can you just share your experiences? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I'd like to thank you, TWEA, for this organization. I would like to welcome all these participants. Well, it's going to take a little bit long, but I'll have to just give a brief answer. I started working in this wind industry in 2015. Of course, we had these plans. We had these plans before 2005, but let me start with a basic comparison. It was a euro-based mechanism that was implemented. It was 5.5 euro cents. In Greece, there was a 19 cents subsidy in Greece. It is the same conditions, as the similar conditions. So we are falling behind. We are falling behind as a country, but it's a great success to have to reach this point despite all these conditions, all these drawbacks. There was a period where they didn't want to sell these turbines, and I'm not yet even talking about the financing. So we didn't have faith in ourselves. Of course, we are talking about the sector industry that is dominated by the European companies. We have this power of 13 gigawatts of installment power. Of course, it could have been better. Maybe we could have better capacities, but it is still a great accomplishment that we have reached to these levels. We talk about Turkey. Turkey is depending on the fossil fuels. We have these deficits, we have these currency deficits, but this wind energy also has contributed to this deficit because we had to spend a lot of time to these consulting services, these components and everything. Well, we have these local industries. We are trying everything. We are trying everything. This is a trial and error method for all of us, but it doesn't mean that we fail at everything. There are a lot of arrangements, regulations. In the beginning, I was rejecting all, I was denying, but we have seen some positive outcomes. We have a domestic wind industry. We have a domestic know-how. We have consulting agencies. There are a lot of consulting agencies. We can facilitate domestic manufacture. Some turbine components can be manufactured at a higher standards. When we are compelled, we can achieve great things as a nation. So maybe we can take a step further. Maybe Turkey has to be a wind hub of this region. Well, we have to sell components, we have to sell know-how, we have to sell engineering services. That's the next step that awaits us. We will be increasing our installed capacity. It's not easy to estimate the speed, but this information and know-how that we gathered around the wind should be an investment, and we should gain more income around this. Thank you. Özkan Ulu, previously called Bereket and now IDEM, has worked for quite long years, and they have a lot of knowledge around this topic. A month ago, they have their own consultancy companies now. They're serving as a consultant to the industry. What is the difference in the two positions, two hats that you're wearing? Analyzing the past and actual situation, what would you like to say? But first of all, I would like to thank for your invitation. As NRMX, we are a very brand new company, but we are born with the experience of 2 decades that we gathered from IDEM Energy. We didn't want to depart from the industry. We wanted to keep ourselves dedicated in this wind energy industry. We developed our business models. As Mr. Majid pointed out clearly, there are some cases in the field. He denominated them correctly, but I would like to fill in the gaps. Yes, there's a financial dimension. Let's assume that we have these finances. Let's assume that we have these funds. These wind plants, if we would like to plan these wind farms according to, we have to have these feasibility studies, and at least for a year you have to measure these towers, you have to make assessments. Depending on the results, you have to consult with companies in order to facilitate these feasibility investigations. Depending on the model and brand of these turbines, you can do investments, installments. How can we benefit from that? So the best turbine that you have, the best is not the one that makes the most production. The cost of the turbine also plays an important role. You request offerings, you request prices. Then this process of permits and licenses comes up next, depending on the measurements of the wind power. You make these analysis of the interaction. You complete this process. Then you continue to initiate the construction process and projects. Construction projects are all very important. You have to facilitate it in the field. It impacts these investments areas. Regarding the technical indications, technical instructions, turbine crane areas are really very important because we're not really depending on the third investors. We are always what they want is that they want a bigger area. They want to store it. Subcontractors are even asking for it. But as an investor, it's a big asset and it's an expensive solution. You have to do the correct planification with correct people, right people. After the construction phase, you have these concretes and you make these installments. Of course, technology is ever changing, so turbines are even more efficient. There are brand new models. So the rotor dimensions and blade dimensions sizes are always varying. In order to reach an area, these wind areas are at the top of the mountains. Accessibility is important. In order to access these areas, maybe you need big lorries, you need these vast roads and highways. In order to reach these areas, these blade lifters are offering a good solution with a minimum impact and damage on the forests, on the environment. Yet we have also noted that especially the companies that carry the load, they do not have these enough size blade lifters. The minimum blades size is 160 meters. This is important. In these projects, this is important. Also, after the installment, you have to make some tests, you have to put it into action, you have to implement it, and maintenance also plays a crucial role. We have had different experiences. First of all, we started with purple blade turbines. This is the unique in the world purple blade turbines. We are collaborating with 2 different Chinese companies. We also collaborated with a European company, but we are first to collaborate with a Chinese company. This is a very different experience. We didn't only make this turbine agreement, we made this agreement and carrying process, transmission process, and subcontraction process also belong to us. So we gather a lot of example. We gain a lot of knowledge. The wind industry for the last 20 years is an ongoing dynamic process. We have enough information. Well, there's this capacity that we can implement. These wind projects also contributed a lot to Turkey economy in terms of employment. That's all I have to say. In general terms, of course, we are here to celebrate the Turkey Wind Energy Congress. We love this industry, but we can self-criticize. We used to participate as a moderator in the sessions in 2022. Wind was even stronger than solar energy, but we were fearing that solar energy would exceed it. But we have seen that as a result, this electricity power, regardless of its resource, when we talk about the solar energy, we are the pioneers. But by now, I believe we lost it. We lost the pioneership. We're not pioneers anymore. We have to do more of what we are doing so that we can contribute back to public, to our citizens. It was equal last year in terms of megawatts, but in terms of installments, solar power exceeded us. It is 10 times more. Solar plants installment was 10 times more than the wind installment. For the next decade, we have to be faster. As a reminder and a self-assessment. Well, in the upcoming periods, we have these 5,000 megawatts of solar energy. Only then we can reach our 2035 targets. For YECA, maybe, do you think that it's really sufficient? Our experience is enough. If it's not enough, what are the parts that we lack? What do you think? Well, in scope of YECA, of course, as the masters know already, there are specifications, there are some parameters, there are advantages. It's an ever evolving process in YECA. In for the wind, for the solar energy, in the tender process, I believe that we have reached the utmost point. We see that these super permissions is a result of this process. We are here to ease the permission process. That's what we see in the YECA. The YECA investors are in line in contact with us. They're always contacting us. They await our support and they communicate their feedback. So we know what the investors need. We know their difficulties. We can observe them well. In order to eliminate these difficulties in the competitions that will be organizing, we will be also appropriating these process of permits. For example, we will organize competitions after having organized these assessment reports, environmental impact reports, so that we can facilitate at the time of zoning planning. So expediting this permit process is really important. Will have a huge impact not only in the ECA process but also in other processes as well. It will cut these processes to, I believe it will diminish it to half of the period with the decree of this Grand National Assembly. We believe that all of the investments will accelerate. We will observe the processes. We will see what we can do. We will be building on the process. It will develop. steadily. Next year, we will continue with 2,000 megawatts. I believe there will be important specifications. I believe that there will be a positive feedback. The experiences that we have will serve us well. There's just one question regarding the ECAS.
Neredeyse 7-8
So you have experience of like 7 to 8 years, and following you, there have been many countries opting YECA-like process, but do they contact you and ask you to share your experience and know-how? Yeah, we receive a lot of comments from other countries. And by the way, very high, very senior level, from very senior level. We have high-level meetings. We get together with the investors or sector representatives, and we share our experience. And we tell them why we set some specific rules and specifications and also regulations. But those countries who contact us and try to understand, I mean, as far as we have understood, haven't developed as us. We overcome a lot of problems with regulations, but they try to fix their issues with specifications. This can bring both opportunities and problems. But if you are preparing for a project, for a specification, for a regulation, you need to see all details. Sure, all countries have their own unique conditions, but what we are doing act as an example to others. There are so many countries in need of improving their infrastructure, but not just other countries, actually. Even our European counterparts are appreciating our efforts. It's so great to hear, because this affects all stakeholders. And the fact that there is a know-how sharing on a governmental level is great, because it can be interpreted as authorities and stakeholders will assume their responsibilities in the future as well. And Mijit, do you think everything is great, or do you think there are some gaps and shortcomings? Well, wind is not that deep-rooted. It has a history of 15 to 18 years. I mean, since the installation of the very first turbine, it's been 17 to 18 years. And my conclusion is that, okay, we've gained a great amount of experience from installation to operation, having access to finance. We have come a long way. We can have access to finance, and we've developed ourselves greatly in legal terms as well. We've gained great experience, but gaps and shortcomings. After engaging turbines, the operation or maintenance, I mean, we sometimes fail to train engineers, or we fail to retain them and they prefer to work abroad. It doesn't look like a big challenge for the industry right now, but well-trained, talented engineers are not always happy. I mean, I spent time on the field, and every week I see different engineers. Well-trained ones, experienced ones prefer abroad, and the ones that lack experience stay in the country, and they actually take the know-how with them. So you go back to the beginning and make sure that this new engineer is also getting experience as well. I see academia working on it, but this is a challenge for the industry. So maybe Turep can take note, and I know that you tried to do a couple of things, but looking in the field, we are still lacking experienced engineers. The same thing applies to software side too. We still have our shortcomings on that front. So engineers and software developers, I mean, we need to find ways to make them happy and retain them. Can you imagine? Or that maybe we sometimes, I mean, export that know-how, because there are developers or engineers, let's say, who live in Germany, and by pressing a single button, they run or operate our turbines here in Turkey. So this is something we have to fix. I mean, nationally speaking, turbines and human resources need to be improved further. Another shortcoming is maybe not that apparent, but energy trade and the carbon law. We are falling behind. We just established this IREC carbon market. I mean, there were different carbon markets in the past, but we have friends from carbon industry, and sometimes we chat and conclude that the carbon market infrastructure is not matured yet. I mean, yes, there is a good team, and we set up our own team and seek ways to progress on our commercial activities. There are, some companies, fine, but experience is not there yet. So this is an issue. But as Sanjak, we believe that until 2026, I mean, we won't be making, investments in big projects, some extensions maybe, meaning a 40 to 50 megawatts of hybrid investments annually. But apart from that, energy trade and the carbon market is in our radar. We might concentrate on that. We started, onboarding. Carbon is, as you know, before the Russia-Ukraine war was a significant source of revenue, but after that crisis, the projection around the world is that as long as we can generate it, it doesn't have to be renewable 100%. So that's why carbon prices dropped, and they don't mean much at the moment. But maybe in the coming years, if the world can settle and again agree on the fact that we should not be polluting the planet, then carbon prices might recover. So we have to be ready for that, because we're quite dependent right now. And if we can improve our domestic means, then it'll be fine. Constructions, transmission lines, manufacturing, we are experienced in those areas as the industry. But we need to train more and, offer crucial skill sets to our human resources. Exactly when labor force decides to move abroad, then this brings about disrupting challenges. We discussed the same thing yesterday. Actually, related engineering faculties, departments need to go hand in hand with the industry. They need cooperation so that they can better train engineers of the future, so that the graduates will have experience, and they'll be more ready for employment and for their career. We should take necessary actions before this issue get more critical. Looking at banking sector, I mean, we know that they always set great examples. They're the ones who come up with best practices. But when it comes to project financing and thinking of wind industry, do you think the experience is enough? Because costs are rising, and in the coming years, I wonder whether Turkish banks can have cooperation with international financial institutions. Short answer is yeah. We don't have to dive into further details on this, because banking sector takes Yektem as a model for project financing, but we need to increase the accumulation of knowledge and know-how. There are some areas of improvement, and some steps have been taken already. I mean, I switched from energy to banking. And I know that merchant models are being adopted at the moment just to compensate the negative developments. But on banking side, I mean, yes, there is know-how and projects are assessed very meticulously, but there are two things I want to touch upon. The first is the eco projects. Many investors have their feasibility assessments before joining a tender. I know that's the case because I took part in many tenders, and they said you set your break-even points, and when things go lower, you might start facing some risks, and you identify it and you set a confidence interval. But something happens during the eco tender. I don't know what the atmosphere is like. I never participated in a tender personally, but it's like investors have never had those feasibility assessments. It's like they never set those breaking points. And then I hear some prices and I really get shocked. But my sincere hope is that because there is a great effort exerted here, I hope investors won't lose their touch with the reality. Why? Because, I mean, here's something I witnessed. There was this investor, a good one, came with an advisor. They assessed a good YECA project, had their feasibility assessment, but the PTF was not that realistic, like $120. PTF is not like that. And like I said, the investor had an advisor with alongside, and I told them all about the process, and together with the rises in natural gas, with this and that, there is this emission, that emission, and then the advisor said, natural gas and PTF, how come they're related? He said. I mean, we're talking about millions of dollars of investment here, working with an advisor. But I mean, you have to tell them what is what. You need to be able to ask for specific things. And by the way, they run their feasibility, but their own experience is also important. And you need to see whether they have a team. And financing is one aspect, but the investor should have made his own assignments and homework as well. Also, stored wind plant projects. We receive a lot of storage projects too, and we assess them as well. But apart from certain things, as we run our feasibility, we sometimes see things like, the legislation is not clear at the moment, and in renewables and in ancillary services, and how they should be positioned is not quite clear yet. There are some plans, but no announcements yet. But before those announcements, I mean, some things will never be clear, and sometimes there are mistakes made, and when mistakes made, I mean, the time is lost already. The know-how is there, and the banks are also aware of it. Banks know what to pay attention to when it comes to wind or solar projects. So realistic feasibility is what we need. Realistic prices are what we need. Because if your project is not realistic, then, I mean, it's a time lost. There might be some issues. You can fix them, you may not fix them, but when the approach is not realistic, then the communication gets challenged as well. So what you said, that lessons learned, is really crucial. You really, really should learn so that you won't make the same mistakes again, and then so that you can complete processes swiftly. Mr. Dilan, you see, I mean, people are assuming their responsibilities, but Sometimes when mistakes are bad, the loss is huge. I hope the new yakas will be a win-win situation for all parties. Ahmet, I have a similar question for you. You represent one of the largest companies and you are also represent Renaissance. You have the experience too. We have a great know-how on wind, okay, but compared to international experience, have we learned enough? What is our divergences and how do you see Turkey? Thank you. Well, first, as a nation, we know how to be a subcontractor very well. The previous speakers also emphasized it. I have to repeat, unfortunately, but construction and electricity infrastructure, I mean, we make the impossible possible. That's no, I mean, I can't say that we have developed. I mean, we are mature. It would not be enough. But yes, we are quite self-sufficient. The know-how is there, the experience is there. And when it comes to wind, there will always be areas of improvement. I'm not going to touch upon the new YACA regulation, but I'm representing Renaissance here. And compared to previous regulations, speaking, representing a company that has generated 3 great projects before, I mean, I should not be criticizing the new regulation because there might be a serious comeback to that. But compared to the previous one, it's a better one. Areas of improvement could be discussed. I mean, I say discussed because we see the regulation, we check the details, but we have to see the outcomes as well because tenders are shaped according to the new regulations. But if unfeasible projects are, approved, then what to do? Because our biggest fear during those tenders are people who doesn't have any visibility but try to compete with companies like us. They have this courage of the illiterate, let's say. But then those are, I mean, separate issues, and we discuss them all the time. But let me tell you one thing that is heavily overlooked. A wind plant looks like a revolving turbine from afar, but there is an incredible system in the background, and sometimes projects are carried out with inaccurate engineering, and then your plans fail, calculations fail, everything fails. Here's an example. For many years, in the past, I mean, it was like, okay, just pay as you go, don't lose that time, okay, but without any measurements, without any assessments, how can you know how much you can generate? I mean, even when you make your calculations, you cannot know it by 100%, and getting ready for something that you don't know how it might turn out is quite a challenge. So I represent a company that has an international partner. Total Energies, as you know, has an assertive goal of 1,000 megawatts of targets, and some of that will be in Turkey. And when you announce your 2,000 megawatts of portfolio, and when they ask you how are we going to do it, I say that okay, next year we're going to focus on this YECA project, but then we cannot talk about everything in greater detail because you need planning, meticulous planning, and we try not to drown ourselves with engineering that might become a heavy burden. But rather, we collect data, get information, run our feasibility, calculate, and if we know, I mean, if we feel sure about the possible outcomes, then we act in a more brave fashion. That was a great answer. Thank you. Özkan, projects and operations wise, do you think experience is there? And if you were to compare, I mean, how does the picture look to you? It's been 20 years since wind industry started to form, and it has come a long way, and it's been quite dynamic so far. And looking at onshore, investment, engagement, operation, and covering investment needs like electricity needs or construction needs, those areas are the areas that we are experienced, and we have consulting companies, advisors, everything is in place. And companies have improved themselves too. But thinking of the future, I mean, it's been great so far, but what about offshore? When offshore is brought to the agenda, if we fail to have an accumulation of knowledge, and by the way, we're not experienced yet in onshore, again, we will will become dependent to external forces and means. So wind plants actually cause fluctuations in the grid, and they bring about a challenge. So that is why storage facilities could potentially be a great problem fixer, but it hasn't developed anywhere in the world. And I think we need R&D efforts. We need trials and errors. And of course, digitalization is a hot topic, or like AI. We can benefit from those technologies to come up with proper planning, proper programming, to predict a possible fault. We can maybe benefit from diagnostic maintenance, etc. I mean, wind industry improves in a very dynamic fashion, and certification institutions have worked around the clock to improve the industry. So yes, these are the areas that we should continue to pay attention. Yeah, especially AI will improve the industry, but also as the use of AI improves, it's going to be one of the best customers. I just read an article that when you ask 30 questions to a chat GPT, it consumes energy equal to the energy consumed by a human being. And if the demand on AI and digital means will increase, so should the generation. So let's start our second round. After all that we have discussed, how do you project the future? I mean, if onshore capacity is targeted to be expanded and increased, what might change in the future? Well, business models, financing models, AI, technology, turbines, unmanned planes, like what will change in the future? Yeah, we discussed related topics. Technology is changing, and as you calculate power, I mean, everything is a variable. So new technology turbines can be even larger. Capacity might be larger. Of course, there'll be a limit because logistics is an issue, installation is an issue, but maybe we'll start seeing 200-meter rotor sizes. Auxiliary equipment, functions, infrastructure, they should be ready. And we have to support the young with maybe internship programs or grants, etc. And maybe there can be some field visits to offer them experience. And the academia should lead the way. Storage is important. It'll get even more important. Energy supply will always be in the agenda. You have to follow the developments closely so that Turkey can keep up and won't fall behind. And also If we're talking about onshore here, we are experienced, but in offshore, we are still not there yet. And there are still a lot of things to consider because Turkey has a great potential. Okay, Ahmet, what about you? Comparing onshore and offshore, what might be different in the future?
I think it will be a compelling situation. It will be even more complicated. Let me give you a simple example. 2 decades ago, we didn't really talk about feasibility studies of these wind energy assessments. You talk about these assessments. Well, if it's just the dollars, you could easily take these decisions, but we have this reality. We have this reality. It cannot be infinite. Not all the countries can uh, organize it accordingly. But you need a battery. You needed a battery. This is the reality. You have to live with this reality. You have to continue living with this reality. These easy feasibility studies should be done. But what will be the frequency? How will I make these controls without depreciating the batteries? Of course, this depreciating the battery is a cost. It has a cost, but this is just a detail. But of course, we didn't really use these batteries. But considering all these two, maybe we talk about these data transmission system. We don't talk about this manual analysis. Of course, AI systems will be integrated. These systems will have a maintenance time on their own. They will be making the trades, but it will be more complicated. It will be infinitely more complicated. There are some estimations about this, but I cannot explain it because I cannot really explain and know that it will be. We talk about these 10 megawatts. So without making it more flexible, how can we make it longer? If we elongate them or not, it's a logistic process. But economically speaking, they will be even more efficient. So the cost of maintenance is increasing. You occupy less spaces. Maybe it was 10 megawatts, but you can establish 30 megawatts. You will be using in offshore areas. It will be even different. In offshore areas, there are different developments. In offshore, if it's a model, it's a functioning model or not. They say that there will be decrease in the cost. There's a confusion there, but there are a lot of floating offshores. There are even more complicated than that. There are a lot of positive sides. They do not harm the environment. Maybe we can be optimistic about that because there's a Chinese reality in this aspect. You know, everyone knows they were all in touch with the Chinese companies. They positively changed the mentality. Maybe in offshore, they will be changing this mentality. We will have more offshore companies, but there's a more complicated systems. More complicated systems we'll be facing with all these systems. Thank you so much. But regarding the banking industry, do you think that there will be a lot of changes in the future? Regarding the change, it's really hard for me to say. The financial markets depends on different aspects. How do you displace? So what is the criteria of the resources? Not only in terms of this financement, we can also think about these direct investments. it is really important that they continue. They have all their own finance capacities. They have all their own finance budgets. It will be an impact and facilitating impact. There are two sides of this coin. One of the banking area, the parallel area, is if it's a capacity increase. If it's a capacity increase, parallel to this, we have to absorb this. The grid has to sustain it. The grid has to lift it. In parallel, Mr. Minister also mentioned this. It has to continue in parallel so that it can easily continue with this facilitating. So, as Mr. Ahmed mentioned, a battery is important for these wind farms. It is important for the wind farms. We can integrate it for the system security. It is very critical. We have to make this optimization. We have to make these micro studies. Banking industries play a crucial role. It is a relatively new topic. We can make this. We have to define it. We have to reflect it in the project, in the grid securities, that we can continue with the securities in the wind resource storage. We have to make these facilities. In the upcoming periods, I believe this will be critical for financial part that Turkey has these limits. The targets is important. It shows us that it is determined to take these decisions in these financing institutions. That's positive. It's positive when there is such a target, net zero target. These institutions of development will bring these resources. As an investment banking, we should be facilitating this communication with the investors. We're repowering. What is the Turkish repowering? Is it close? Repowering, is it close? We have some expectations from the future. So we have to talk to these partners. What do we expect? I have a few notes. Until 2026, I believe that there will be a great momentum. But after 2026, we need this. We need this. We have to make these connections in the technology. We have to reconstruct. We don't have this infrastructure. TH will be talking about these areas, but I don't think that we have these areas. I don't think that we have sufficient technology. We have to make some improvements regarding the turbine technology. As you all know, for the last 13 years I've been working in this industry. Since the last turbine that I purchased, we purchased another turbine from Nordics. They are increasing the sizes of the rotors and the scales, blades. It will continue to 15. But technologically, there isn't an update. Per megabyte. The cost per megabyte is stable. But we can see this is 4 megabytes. It is an obligation. Technologically, there isn't an technologically speaking, there isn't an improvement. I don't say that they should be making a two-blade turbine. Maybe where the capacity sector is decreased, maybe they can increase the efficiency of the turbines. It's their job. We're not engineers here. I don't know. We don't know how to make it, how to design it. In Konya area, it wasn't available for 30 to 35 functioning, but the area's blades are larger now. Now they can put into action. We commissioned it. They're in action, but we have to also increase the radius of the rotors. But going beyond that, we have to have some innovation because the investors are looking for something bigger. They are looking for some investments for software, software monitoring systems. We have good monitors. As investors, in terms of estimation, we are falling behind. We have some estimations. If we cannot do it, there are some fluctuations in our cash flow. But if there is a 30% to 40% of deviation within the year, it's a problem. We have to harness the technology, AI, we can develop for further use. I think it's the best for all of us. Dr. Dilan, what's your take on this issue? Not depending on the technology, can you have this guarantee on the purchase guarantee? Do we expect these changes? YEKA is open to innovation. YEKA is open to transformation. As we have mentioned, with all these specifications, we are adding innovations. We proved it with the latest amendments to regulations. We made the changes into competition specifications. It's a huge improvement. Together with the specifications, we can add any update. This is a show that we have to implement with YEKA methods. In offshore part, there are different models. There can be different competition models that where we can combine them all. It's foreseeable. YEKA is a very flexible model, but it's all depending on the grid infrastructure. We have to emphasize that. As Mr. Minister announced, we have HVDC investment that we don't have. It is 40 gigawatts of investments till 2035. It's a very expected huge development. So the grid infrastructure of the country will advance a lot. We will be harnessing new capacities. We will be defining new capacities. We have all seen it. So the capacity targets also show us that we talk about only for the grids $28 billion of investment. We can also empower it with AC. We will see the developments. Apart from YEKA, we will be supporting these renewable energies. Renewable energies should come with these flexibilities. We have to manage this. While preparing for the panel, we uploaded in the YouTube. We have different types, different titles that's ever changing. I believe that we are all embedded in this. We are very invested in this. It is ever changing all around the world. This sector, as a partners of this sector, we are here. We will do our part and we will be insisting on doing our part. We completed our panel, now our session. Well, I believe we have this flexibility to take a few questions from the hall. Greetings. My name is Ismet. I am asking this question on behalf of myself. I'm not representing any institution. It's a sincere question. I'm really curious about the answer. We have touched on very important topics. I would like to thank you for these panels. We talked about these experiences. Of course, I don't have much of an experience. I've been working in this area for the last 5 years, but I know some areas, especially Mr. Majid. I can relate to what Mr. Majid touched on. I can understand what he is talking about. My question is, Mr. Erdem had an anecdote about this. It was about the investor. The investor has a quality qualification themselves. Maybe you can understand the topics well. I'm not working for the part of the investors. Maybe I couldn't observe well, but my question is addressed to the investors or the previously investors in Turkey. While making these investments, what is the risk analysis? How do you do it methodologically? How do you think that is implemented according to the metrics? Do you think that risk analysis is done according to some metrics? Sector is developing on a rapid phase, as Mr. Ahmed said, in the Excel. It was easier. It was easy to see how you do these investments. It's a reality for all of us. We will see. So it will not be staying as we put it in an Excel sheet. The most expensive turbine will be the one that's not functioning. So the feasibilities will not show us. So, wrapping up the risk analysis, all these risk analysis, if you are to put it on a paper, do you make a risk analysis? Do you measure financial metrics, figures? What's your take on this issue? Mr. Majid, Mr. Ahmed? So maybe your reply will be better. Risk analysis. Do we do risk analysis? Yes, we have to do the risk analysis. Maybe in order to implement this project, if it's a financial, there are some non-financial risks, non-technical risks. You can do this risk, but you have to know it. You have to establish some scope risk analysis. You can establish the scope. You can have some consultants or more than a few consultants. You can manage this risk analysis process. You can consult to the institutions. Of course, it's really important. For example, it is like a drilling for the fuel. Sometimes you are making this fuel. It is in the wind. It is to the contrary. If I can do drilling projects, if wind projects, you have to maybe eliminate these projects, the 8 of them, the least risks, and you have to choose them. I forgot the second part. Well, my question was regarding the turbine supplier, not the risk analysis of the projects. I see that part, but I ask about the turbine suppliers. When we choose the turbines, we always make the assessment based on the financial figures, as I know of. Maybe just giving an example of a case, if this is a turbine producer has low stops on Turkey, they will have a different type of support. What is this ratio to give up or the possibility to give up? Is this a criteria for the risk analysis? Of course, you have a West experience. Maybe, I do not know. Do you have a scientific methodology? Do you have a list of criteria? There are institutional, structural documentations. Is there a structural method to facilitate this risk analysis rather than a method? Let me touch on some concrete topics. You have to see the financial power of the counterpart. You have to make this assessment accordingly, how they will react, how they will act. In the wind industry, you have some extreme examples. X companies, they may be leading companies of the world, but they do not have any registered company in Turkey. It's a no-go. You don't need a methodology for that. Of course, you have to assess some other criteria. We are talking about sustainability. This sustainability chain is important. How they manage these turbines. Do they respect the human rights? We have to also consider these maintenance. You have to sometimes give up some suppliers. These are non-financial metrics and indicators. Is there anything that you would like to add? Well, briefly speaking, regarding the risk analysis, we can talk further on these topics. I believe that the institutions, that's if it's a trader, Anatolian-based trader, we always talk about the transformation, whether this is an advantage or not. If there is an advantage to that, we make the assessment of the advantage. But sometimes we don't make this assessment in order to select these turbines. It is not more than. It's not. There are only a bunch of companies, turbine companies. You are, always you always end up with two of them. So it is a similar price. It is tailor-made turbine. You cannot say that I don't like this. I would like to return it. You cannot say that. So there are some serious investments. We talk about $1 million. We analyze it, we investigate it. But if you request more detailed information, we would like to receive you in our company. One last question. As far as I can see, there isn't any other question. I would like to thank distinguished participants, esteemed audience. I would like to thank STWEC. We have completed this 13th Congress. They are about to conclude this Congress. So this is the 13th version, 13th celebration of TWEC. I would like to thank each and every one of you for your different opinions. I hope to see you on the 14th TWEC with more projects. We'll be discussing more projects. I would like to see you. Thank you and good evening. We would like to thank you. Thank you so much. We will be presenting some gifts for your contributions. First of all, to our moderator, Güray Erol. Mehmet Feridun Ezgi, the esteemed Feridun Ezgi. Very important name for TREP. Very important for Güray Erol. We are presenting. Thank you so much. we would like to present to Dr. Dilan Kavruk, Head of a Renewable Energy Resources Area from Ministry of Energy and Natural Resources. Thank you so much for your contributions for today. Thank you, Ms. Dilan. Let's take a picture. Mecit Sancak. Thank you so much for sharing the information. Well, Erdem Sezer, Development Investment Bank of Turkey. Ahmet Hatipoğlu from Renaissance Energy. Thank you so much. Well, Enamex partner founder Özkan Orlu. He was one of the valuable speakers. As moderator says, we concluded the 13th one. One more picture. We have these speakers. Thank you for staying here for the last 2 days. It was a very dense meeting. It was a very fruitful meeting. We would like to see you next year. I believe we will take another picture, Mr. Iskender, right? If you can wait. Let's invite our members of the executive board. Thank you so much. This is the last picture of the last 2 days with members of the executive boards. We would also like to thank our interpreters. I would like to thank the interpreters, the organizing team. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for their efforts. They contributed a lot. We are waiting for this area, this track. We are concluding this Turkey Wind Energy Congress. We're finalizing this Congress. Mr. Iskender, maybe we can invite you to podium.
Yönetim kurulu ve denetim kurulu üyeleri
Derya'nın oldu. Bunu atıyorum cebime. Bu senin.
Ne o?
Otopark fişi.
Ben buraya park etmedim ki. Ne, bedavaya mı geldik?
Bilmiyorum, umarım bedavadır.
Umarım size bedavadır. Benimki burada değil. Geçen sene ben hiç burada yer bulamadığım için burayı hiç denemedim bile. Bir de buradaki şeyler çok dardı. Burada sürttüm. Geçen sene daha da acemiydim.
Tamam, biz konferans tercümanıyız. Siz nasıl araba kullanamıyorsunuz bakayım? Herkes bir tırsıyor.
Neyden?
Delirtmeyin beni. Araba kullanmaktan.
Benim ilk arabam bebeğim. Daha bir sene oldu. Hatta ikinci seneye yeni başlayacağım. O yüzden normal, kendimi biraz normalize ediyorum.
Deneyime ihtiyacım var.
Evet ya, ikinci seneye dönüyorum ancak yani bakacağız. Tırsmıyorum da sürttüm yani burada.
Aman öf.
efendim sahneye teşrif ettiler. Yönetim Hoş geldiniz. Tekrar şeref verdiniz. Sayın Başkanım. Sayın Başkanım ya şöyle bir kapatalım mı? Şöyle bir mikrofonda bir şeyler söylemek ister misiniz? Hazır hepimiz buradayken.
Kürsüyü getirin.
Yaşasın. Başkanım şöyle.
One last word maybe, distinguished chair. We have young guests joining us. That's great. Well, first of all, it's been great 2 days. Are we tired? Do any of you feel tired? No, yeah, we want another day. We need a third day. Well, starting with the young participants, I thank each and every one of you. I hope this Congress was fruitful to all of you. We had been working for the last 6 months, but the last month was intervened by this Hamburg visit. But efforts went on, and in the last month, we were quite busy to make this Congress a success. Mr. Ali and Ufuk and Mr. Mesut and his team, all of you. Thank you so much for your efforts. The young guests from Energy Türep and the coordinator Tuna and Esat who worked with them. Esat, okay, to Miss Selma. A special thanks to Miss Selma. She's here with us right now, right? Yeah. Yeah, you worked around the clock in the last month to organize these memoirs, those incredible pieces of art. They worked day and night. I didn't see the final result. I just saw it here and I loved it. Great work. Congratulations. You worked for months as well. It's been a great journey. Thank you so much to all of you. But also vice presidents, deputy chairpersons, boards. They started working at 7:30 in the morning, or they had meetings at 6 o'clock, like 11 o'clock. A lot of things happened, and a lot of effort was exerted. We received a great deal of support. And Emin, on the public side, they worked incredibly. Okay, I see him there in the corner. Yes, he needs his rest. And the simultaneous interpretation, yes, they are still working. Yeah, in those booths. Thank you so much for all your efforts and for your interpretation. Go ahead and interpret your congratulations. Well deserved. Well deserved. So everybody. And a special thanks goes to the people who had to carry those heavy picture frames. This Congress is the outcome of a great effort. Some decided to watch football matches instead and left already, but that's all right. I mean, but still. We had a great PR team. Thanks to the PR team. The social media posts were great too. Meltem, that was some great work done. Congrats to you as well. Then we learned how to run before we learned how to walk actually. Who else is left? Photographers. And Ilkin. Yeah, he took a great photo. Thank you. Where's the king? And also, yeah, you.
Türev'in kral çalışması
King of Turep.
Arkadaşlar hepinize samimi çalışmalarınız, gayretli, geceler beraber çalışmanız için teşekkür ederim.
Thank you so much
Manevi olarak
for all your
destek
efforts.
maddi olarak
We received a great deal of support.
ürün üreticilerimiz,
We received incredible financial support as well. Turbine producers, many companies. We had booths of 30 to 40 companies. Last night's gala dinner received sponsorship. A special thanks goes to all of you. And you who joined me at this stage, tell your teams I'm sorry, and I know how pleased and happy international guests were. We were compared to Wind Europe events, and the fact that we are on a comparable level makes us more than proud. It's an incredible success. Thank you for everything that you have done. I hope we'll do even better in the next year, in the coming years, and in 2028, I hope we'll merge this Congress with Wind Europe. We'll continue to work harder.
Can Çağatay'ın çok güzel bir önerisi var.
Çağatay has this great advice. This is 5 gigawind. Yeah, that's a great pun.
Çağatay'ın sabahları,
That's a great pun. Even Mr. Çağatay worked until daylight.
İskender, Ali, yani
And Iskender and Ali, İklim.
kötü geçtiyse benim için
Oh, the first day was a bit of a challenge for me because we were too tired. But thank you. You've been great masters of ceremony with Mehmet Akif, and it's been great from start to finish. Great job, well done. And I wish you all success. Thank you so much for your hard work. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, thank you. Now let's have one final family photo.
Sorunundan kaynaklı. O yüzden şöyle bir basamak daha Ebran ışık yukarı ışıktan kaynaklı.
Nasıl geçelim? Siz yönlendirin.
Hemen bir basamak daha şöyle Ebran bir basamak daha çıkabilirsek. Evet. Bir adım geri yapabiliriz. Işıktan kaynaklı. Işığımız hiç eksik olmasın. Ha.
Evet, şu an çok daha iyi.
Çok daha güzel, evet.
Gel şöyle. Benim yanımda kalmasan daha iyi bence ama neyse.
Genç arkadaş, sizleri de alalım arkadaşlar.
güvenliklara doğru bir ilerleyelim. O zaman büyük fotoğrafı çekelim. Hadi. Gençler buyurun.